when you're nomading, it's a marathon. You need to be okay with the day that you're not really doing anything because you need to relax and you need to work maybe. And maybe you're not seeing all the attractions everywhere, and you need to be okay with it because you know that in the long term, doing it for a few years, you're going to see a lot more experiences than people that just go for a week.
听旅行故事，离开原本的生活思维，找到自己的生活滋味。Welcome to Jasmine Journey. I am Jasmine. This podcast is talk about digital nomad life, how to be a Chinese teacher, and also the love story during traveling. Okay, this is my first time to speak in English as the opening because generally most of my audience, they speak Mandarin, they understand Mandarin, so I even have to translate in English. But during the traveling life, this is my 5th year of digital nomad life. I feel there's more and more friends ask me to do more episode in English. Also, last year, in August, I met a guy from Israel and he gave me so many entrepreneur ideas. I think that's why I start to think maybe I have to overcome my uncomfortable with English. Just put some interview with my nomad friends. Very chill, very natural conversation. I think it doesn't matter about my English ability, right? The more important is how they feel, how they share, and their story. So this episode VIP guest, his name is Agam. Agam is from Israel. He's very young, but already have his own business. In this interview, we talk about what's the biggest challenge as a digital nomad. For both of us, actually the traveling part is not that hard, but business is more tricky for us. How to have a balance of your workation life. I think that's the tough part. During traveling, you want everything. You want to make new friends, you want to go to the new temple, new tourist spot, but you also want to earn money, right? You also want to grow up your own business. So balance is really a big issue as a digital nomad. So let's start. Let's listen to Agam's digital nomad life story. Hi, Agam. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Agam. I'm 28 years old and I've been nomading for the past year and a half, a bit more than that. I'm from Israel and I'm a software developer. I have my own company doing a bunch of stuff.
Wow. So before you start to go to traveling, like have a digital nomad life, you already are your own boss.
So I did that kind of together. So the decision was that I want to open up a company and straight after just start traveling. I didn't see a reason to stay because specifically Tel Aviv, the city I was growing up in, is very expensive. And I didn't want to just waste money and time staying there. I wanted to see the world, and because I'm doing digital stuff, I could do it from anywhere. So I thought I might as well just start the company and just go out, and travel.
So what's your company about?
So that was another thing. I was jumping into the deep end of the water. I didn't really have a specific thing I knew I wanted to start with, but I did have a backup. So my big thing was that I signed a contract to teach programming for 8 months with a company. So I was a teacher back then. I did that and I knew that would kind of cover my first year expenses, setting up the company, paying the accountant and all that bunch of stuff. After that, I was I'll figure out what I need to do.
So before you go traveling, have the digital nomad life, what were you worried about? Is there anything you feel anxious about?
I worked for a big corporate job for about 3 years, and I always kind of waited to travel all the time. So I had that big thing that wanted to keep me in the country, and I felt like I really want to go and travel. So I had that big push, and that kind of overwrote all of my fears, because I was I already got so annoyed by staying in the country that I was even if I'm fearful of something, that kind of really helped. But the fears that I did have were what if the company needs me to stay in one location? Because sometimes for a business, you need to, like your routine, you need to have a calm mind, no stress, and just focus on the business. So that was one thing. I was kind of worried if I'll make money moving around. Second is expenses. I didn't really know the expenses, how much everything would cost.
Everything is more cheap than Israel. Don't worry.
Yeah, probably. That kind of helped actually.
Yes.
But still, it's not as cheap. It's very hard to calculate it before you go, unless you actually try it.
Yeah.
Another thing is I also used only one bag. So I had to get rid of a lot of things, and I was a bit scared of would I survive only with a small bag, trying to travel just with a backpack.
How heavy is your bag?
It's like 8 kilos.
Only 8 kilos.
Yeah.
Only carry on.
Yeah. Don't tell the airlines that want 7 kilos, but it's about 8 kilos.
Yeah.
I think the main thing was actually the business. The business was more scary than the digital nomading because...
your own business.
Yeah. Because I never really did my own business and I always worked somewhere. So it could be like a startup, the army, or the big corporation.
Yeah.
But I never did it myself. So that was more scary. The digital nomading is just, it happened to be the same time, you know?
Yeah. So how do you balance that? Because you want to have your own business like faster grow up, or and at the same time you want to explore each city you are traveling.
Yeah, so it's a balance. I think that, so my story goes back a bit. Like when I was in this big corporation, at about somewhere in the midpoint, I was already thinking about either opening a startup or continuing the work there. So it started to be really serious at the time. Like I had a partner, we were really digging deep on maybe starting a startup. And in a startup, you can't really travel. You can't really do digital nomading, in my opinion, because you need to be there. It's a lot of work. It's like 10x what you do in a normal job, you need to do in a startup. At the end, it's a big story, but at the end, I decided I want to do my own thing and not do a startup. So I already reduced the priority of the business. Like if I only wanted to make money and do, the most amount of work, I would stay for the startup. But I decided that because I'm young, I'm healthy, at the time, no relationship, I felt like it's the right move for me to travel and see the world. And so I always try to balance those two. But it's also, I still think you can do work. Now, the question is, what's more important? Is it the travel or the business? And I always try to put the business before the travel. So I'm always like imagining that I'm actually back at home, but just and working. And at night or at the weekend, I'm just like in a different country. So I'm not always like sad that, I'm not really getting to see this place or explore. I'm more like, okay, I'm working, but I have this extra benefit that I'm in a different country. So it's always the business first and then the travel. And I think it kind of worked well for me, but you need to be very good at like managing that balance and that stress.
Have to know your priority.
Yeah, and the business, I'm sure, would do a lot better if I stayed in one place. Like, I think it's a lie that a lot of people say that nomading makes you work better. I think a very small subset of people, it works better for them.
Yes.
And they find like ways to do it. But I think for the vast majority, you're gaining a lot from the experience and from traveling and all that, but your business is taking a hit. Like, you're not staying in the same place. It does have impacts. A flight gets delayed, you get stressed from some travel, like all these things. So you need to take that into consideration. But I still think it's worth it.
Okay, why?
Because you're getting to experience something that almost no one in the world experiences, which is working on your own terms a lot of the times and figuring things out yourself and seeing the world and experiencing new cultures, new places. I think that when I talk with friends back home and stuff like that, I always feel when they talk that they're like really, they want to do that, but they can't do that because they're scared to do it.
Yes.
And I feel like that always motivates me and brings me like to be more grateful about the situation, because I'm like, I do actually get to do what I want. Okay, tomorrow I want to go to Bangkok or to Pai or to Taiwan or to South Korea. I can do it, and I think it's something that they can't do it. And it's very good that I worked 3 years in a corporate job, because that I always remember that when I have like something that like bad thing that happens, some shit that happens, I always am like, oh, it's not that bad actually. I could have been stuck in that corporate job and be like, I want a vacation, but I need to ask my boss and wait like 6 months to get it. Now I just do it. So for me, that freedom is a lot more important than a lot of other things. And I think that if I look at the big picture, and this also helped me, if I look at life from, let's say, I have to imagine myself 80 years old, 90 years old, looking back, I think I would approve what I'm doing now, even though I'm not maximizing the business 100%. And also trusting myself that over time I'll get all that money that I want, and I don't think you need that much too. Like you can figure it out, but health and time is something that doesn't come back.
Yeah.
So experiencing travel while you're still young, I think is vastly different, and I think it's something that a lot of people regret afterwards.
Yes.
Because when you go to a vacation after you get your pension when you're 70, it's not the same as traveling right now.
So go back to your worried. You also mentioned about money.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that? Is that really an issue after you go traveling?
I think it is. I would do things a bit differently if I would start again.
Yes.
So my situation is very different than a lot of other people. So the company I worked for got sold to a big company. So I got some payment from that, and that's really helping me with the travels.
Yeah.
And also the thing that I got that remote work as a teacher of programming at the beginning also helped. I think that there are costs that you need to take into account. I wouldn't stress too much, but it is something you need to think about.
Yeah.
So Thailand is usually a great place because it's usually relatively cheap. Like I went to Taiwan. Taiwan is a lot more expensive than Thailand. So I would also consider where you're going and thinking about the visa situation. So if you can stay only 1 month and there's no other country next to you that is reasonably priced, that's you need to like think a bit through. I would also do like expenses. I never really did expenses. So I kind of like spent what felt right, but I think sometimes it accumulates because you don't see the numbers.
Can you say a number? You think like at least how much per month for life expenses in Thailand?
It really depends on which city and what standard of living you like. In Chiang Mai, I need to do so many calculations for it. I think if you want to have like your own place to live, it's probably gonna be, I don't know, between 300 and 500 baht a night today.
Yeah.
Which is like between 10 and, I don't know, $18 US dollars.
Yes.
So that's the main, I think, cost. Then you maybe want a motorcycle. That could be another, I don't know, 3,000 baht.
Yes.
And food is really cheap. So it's like, I don't know, 50 baht.
You really never think about that? Like total month, a month?
So total month, it really changes because I always change locations.
$700, $1,000.
Yeah, I think that would cover a really decent situation.
I think it's around that number. Yeah. So last question. What's the really challenge for you? Like after you go traveling, you realize, oh, this is the thing. This is really hard for you. You have to deal with it for sometimes. Yeah.
If I'm putting all the business aspects to the side, because I think a lot of my challenges came there, if I just look at travel...
But I would also say travel and work. It's like together, because digital nomad life is not only go traveling, but also we have to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My situation is a bit different because it's so open when you're your own boss and you have your own business. So you can decide what's important and not important. So I think the biggest issue there is feeling okay with the amount of work you're doing while you're traveling.
Yes.
Like sometimes it might be less because you just, took a flight, and sometimes you feel tired and you're like harsh on yourself because, I didn't work enough. Sometimes you just need to be okay with that and understand that you're also traveling and be okay with that and realize it's a marathon, it's a long-term game and not these sprints. So you need to like come back to it. So I think being soft on yourself, and the second thing I think is a challenge is finding a routine. One of the big changes I did was instead of going somewhere for only a week or two, I decided I want to stay at least 1 month in a location because I realized that for the business and for myself, it's very important to have a routine. So to go to the gym, eat normally, sleep normally, and all these things require that you stay longer in a place. Because if you think about it, if you go to a week somewhere, you basically have maybe 1 or 2 days that you can have a routine, because the first day you arrive, nothing happens. Like everything is in chaos.
Yes.
Second day, you're kind of figuring where things are.
Where's 7-Eleven? Where's supermarkets?
Yeah. Is this a good gym or not?
Yes.
Third day and fourth day, you might get something done, but then fifth day, you're getting ready to pack to the next place.
I really don't agree.
Yeah.
I think that's really bad idea for only go digital nomad life for only 1 week.
Yeah, and it's important if you want to get serious work done. So one of the big things I'm doing is like writing the newsletter, and I need like a lot of time for that. It takes me like 20 or 30 hours to write each one. So I can't have a lot of changes. I can't have a lot of context switch.
I don't know, you have to spend that much time, 20 hours for one newsletter.
20 is like a good, like very short for me.
What's your newsletter about?
It's about developer trends.
Yes.
So software engineers, we have like a lot of concepts and there are a lot of new stuff because it's all digital. So I'm trying to find like one concept that's very interesting and trendy, and I'm trying to write about it. And usually there's not a lot of content about it because it's something that's kind of new and not a lot of people are writing about it. So yeah, I want to finish the point. I think that what I wanted to say is finding a routine and sticking to it. Because when you change the location, it's very hard to stick to it. So I would think like find 3 things that are important to you, and I would recommend sleep, food, and working out, and making sure it always happens. Because without that, it's very hard to get the work done and be happy, I think, in the travels.
Yeah, I always recommend my audience, please, one city at least 1 month, or you can't really enjoy everything. Just like you say, you arrive and you pack and you leave. It's like too short.
Yeah, and it's stressful. Like you're doing digital nomading. It's not like most people look at the vacations like it's like they're working in a corporate job and taking a vacation, need to do a lot of things at once, you know, and you got to hit all these places to see this Buddha temple, to see this, go to this kayaking, do that. When you're nomading, it's a marathon. You need to be okay with the day that you're not really doing anything because you need to relax and you need to work maybe. And maybe you're not seeing all the attractions everywhere, and you need to be okay with it because you know that in the long term, doing it for a few years, you're going to see a lot more experiences than people that just go for a week. So you don't need to pack it together. So I would say relaxing more and understanding that it's a long journey. And it's okay.
Who's your newsletter's audience? Yeah.
So the target audience is CTOs, so Chief Technology Officers, people that are like in charge of all of the technology in the company, or VP R&Ds, Vice Presidents of Research and Development. And senior developers, so like senior software engineers.
So not beginner, right?
Not beginners. The reason I'm dedicating it for them is because choosing those technologies and understanding what's the new trend is something that they need to do every day.
Oh.
A junior developer usually gets like work that they need to do and they just do it.
Yes.
But a manager needs to decide where are we going to, what technologies do we need to use.
Yes.
And for that, the newsletter is good. Because I kind of like break down a concept for them very easy. In like 5 minutes of reading, they understand it and decide if they want to use it or not.
So I feel the content is really like high tech and hard code. I mean, it's hard to understand. It's like professional, not for common normal people, right?
Yeah, it's very technical.
Yes.
If there's like a junior developer, they can also enjoy it. I just think that you need to be prepared that it's not for you.
Yeah. May I know, like you provide these free contents, how can you make money from the newsletter?
So this could be like 2-3 hours of talking about how to monetize it. I started it just for my friends and it just really grew from there. I didn't really do deliberate growing at the beginning. But what happens when you have a very specific audience like I have, that's very hard to get also. Developers are not people that like to give their email.
I think your audience is very niche. Yeah.
So when you have that, you can start monetizing a newsletter with sponsorships.
Yes.
At I think around more than 1,000 subscribers. You can start getting like okay money for it. Trust is very important, so you can't just let anyone post there. You need to really make sure it's something that's relevant.
Yes.
But I think other newsletters, a couple thousand subscribers are interesting already. Like you can start making money out of it. The other way of making money is having it a paid newsletter or creating a community around it or something like that. For now, I just like reading about new technology and writing there. Yes. So I'm just doing sponsorships. I'm not doing anything else.
Yes.
It's not my main source of income, but it is a nice, like I can live in Thailand from that.
Yes.
So if I wanted to just stay here, that would be a great source for that. But I would say it's a long-term game and I really enjoy it. Yeah. I think if you create good value and you have trust, so you're not like jeopardizing trust, I think that a long-term game like that will always win.
Yes.
A lot of people I see try to do some quick ways of doing money. It usually doesn't work, especially in stuff that is audience-based like you have or what I'm doing. That's why I think I'm here. Like, I hope I help with that in every aspect of my life.
Thank you so much.
谢谢。
谢谢。